case which I would like to refer, because at a later stage it came before me when I was in Delhi High Court. I don't know whether you have seen these cycle rickshaws in India. I mean, these are rickshaws are actually, these are cycle rickshaws, and then these people, cycle rickshaw pullers, they work on a meager salary of say around 70 to 100 rupees. That would be equivalent to $1.5 Australian per day. Now this Punjab Cycle Rickshaw Act provided that licenses to ply rickshaws could be given only to those owners who run the rickshaws. So a puller has to be owner. The logic behind this was that persons might purchase number of rickshaws and give it to, poor people to ply the rickshaw, and they exploit them. So the act said that the puller has to be owner of the rickshaw. The act was challenged on the ground that it would affect the right to carry on any trade, business or occupation guaranteed by Article 19(1)(g) of the Constitution. The Supreme Court in 1987, speaking through Justice Krishna Iyer, instead of striking down the law, provided a scheme whereby the rickshaw pullers could obtain loans from a nationalized bank. So the intention of the legislature was to stop the exploitation of the poor was achieved, and with the support from the bank. But anyway, 20 years later, this issue came before me while I was sitting in Delhi High Court, and this rule was again challenged, that owner-plier policy was questioned again. The government of Delhi had imposed a ban on number of cycle rickshaws in the city. According to this rule, there could be only 99,000 cycle rickshaws in the city, whereas at the relevant time, the number of cycle rickshaws were 1 million. And so therefore, all remaining, except those 99,000, all were declared, all were, treated as illegal. Now with this meager salary, when the rickshaw puller, he works for the whole day and gets 75 or 80 rupees, had to pay to the corporation employees, to the police, because his activity was not in accordance with law. So we held that though the rule was upheld by the highest court of the country, we decided to strike down this rule, and we said that particularly in view of the problems faced on account of environmental pollution, the cycle rickshaw should be encouraged, and we struck down that rule. And so, and this is perhaps only one decision where the lower court has held that in light of changed circumstances, the order passed by the highest court need not be followed. And this decision was incidentally endorsed by the Supreme Court, I think, in this year. There is another important case, that is right to food. That is one of the most successful PILs in the country. Although India has a plethora of food distribution schemes, there was little impetus to implement them until a civil society group moved the Supreme Court. The court transformed the right to food into a fundamental human right. The court's comments are very, very telling. In case of famine, there may be shortage of food, but here the situation is that amongst plenty, there is scarcity. Plenty of food is available, but distribution of the same amongst the very poor and the destitute is scarce and non-existent, leading to malnourishment, starvation, and other related problems. Notably, the right to food derives not expressly from socio-economic rights, but the court derived it as a part of right to life. And the court directed several schemes to be implemented. Each scheme was elaborately framed by the Supreme Court, and it was implemented. And one of the most significant schemes was the midday meal for the children in the schools, and that was very successful. Lastly, there are serious concerns about the judicial activism, and I would just summarize them. So there are three important concerns. The first is the issue of legitimacy. The second is efficacy. And the third is the problem of creeping elitism that threaten the progressive judicial activism heralded by the Indian judiciary. Now, the critics say that the court has clearly transcended the limits of the judicial functions and has undertaken functions that really belong to either the legislature or the executive. The court has been charged not only with exceeding its institutional capacity, but with reversing constitutional priorities, usurping both legislative and administrative functions, and riding roughshod over traditional rights. An area of concern that has been witnessed in recent times is the instances where the Supreme Court has issued some far-reaching directions. One is direction to engineering of interlinking rivers in India. This is a suo motu direction given by the court to interlink rivers. There are serious ecological, environmental and human rights issues involved in interlinking the rivers.